In today's video, I'm coming to you from New York City. I came for a holiday with my husband and I wanted to get this video made because I wanted to share with you this super charming little do-it-yourself calendar gift that I think you're gonna wanna see. Now these calendars, I got the idea from my friend Tony Santos, and she's an artist out of Seattle. She has a real Parisian illustrative style. I will leave her link below. But last year, she sent me one of these little calendars with her little abstract art glued on it, and I just fell in love. And it hung out in my studio all year, and I kept saying, I'm gonna make some of those. So now I've made some, and I'm gonna share them with you. And if you stay till the end of the video, you'll get to see an alternative to this design, which is with dried flowers and mica flakes. It turned out very pretty, and I definitely want to share that with you. These little calendars are super easy to make, and I'm going to show you how. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I do have a few tips for you. One of the things is you might want to make sure that your hands are clean. That's very important. But also make sure you know where you're going to stamp your item. Now, it could be a bird, it could be a tree, it could be a flower, and it could have several color inks, but I'm keeping it very simple, very basic, because I don't want to spend too much time on it. Plus, I just want something that's a little bit primitive. I think that's maybe what I'm aiming for. And you can see in this one here, I have smudges from my fingers, and I'm gonna try to remove some of it with a kneaded eraser, and it actually is working. Now this is really good ink, it's pretty permanent. Now it won't remove all of it, but you can get some of your smudges off. So just kind of pay attention. You could get creative maybe with something like this. You could take a little gold pen and maybe draw a sun or something above the house on top of the smudge, but just be really careful. I try to keep paper towels really close, and I try to wipe my hands after each impression, because just picking up the stamp and handling it can sometimes smear the ink. This was one of the prototypes that I tried, but I didn't go for this house. It's cute, but I think this one works better. So I used this Bristol board by Canson, and it's a good weight. It's also 9 by 12, and since I'm cutting these into 3-inch by 6-inch strips, it works out perfectly, and I get 6 cutouts on one piece of paper. So basically it's this doubled. And then after I cut them all out, I used a corner rounder, and I rounded all the corners. And then I just used a hole punch to punch right in the middle at the 1.5-inch mark. So then I have all of those ready. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make sure, first of all, my hands are clean. I have a little bit of alcohol on this paper towel. It just helps better to remove some of the ink. And see, even just picking up that stamp like that, I get ink on my fingers. So I'm gonna go around here and just kind of clean it off. And I'm gonna do this regularly as I use this stamp so I don't make a big mess. Now, if I was using a stamp that had a mount, like if it was mounted on an acrylic mount like this, it would be much easier because my fingers wouldn't be coming in contact next to the ink pad when I'm inking it up. But this is Speedy Cut, and it's pretty thick, and I just gotta be cognizant just to not let my fingers get smudged. So I like to ink it while it's sitting on my desk, so I'm not holding it and tapping ink into my fingers, because then I could make a bigger mess. So I'm gonna pick it up, and already I've got ink on my fingers, so before I do anything, I'm gonna wipe that off, get it centered. And I know where I'm going with this because I've done a prototype. I've measured it out in relation to the calendar and where it's gonna land on the top. A nice firm impression, not too hard, because this material has a little bit of give to it. Now this impression turned out okay. You can see there's probably something stuck on my stamp that I need to clean off. I can see it right there. So what I would do is I would be sure to clean that off. See, you can see it went away. So if this little dot or little misprint or whatever you want to call it bothers you, You can go in with a Q-tip, as long as it's in an area that's big enough that you're not going to smear anything around it, and you can just kind of smudge it out. But even though it's super easy, you got to be careful because you can make a mess, and then all of your effort will get smudged. And we don't want it to get smudged. And then I just add a piece of string. Now I would do all of these at one time. Just like I've cut them all out first, then I'm gonna stamp them all, then I'm gonna add the string to all of them, and then I'm gonna add the calendars. And then I'll be done. So I thought I had all of them finished stamped with the house, and I found one that wasn't stamped, and my house stamp I already wiped it off. So I'm gonna try this stamp with this little heart that I drew and put flowers inside. And I think when I'm done, I'm gonna add some shimmery paint to it. We'll see how this turns out. But first, I have to make sure that I'm in the right spot, because this heart, if it goes too low, it's gonna be tucked underneath the calendar. So I'm gonna make sure that the V inside the center of the heart snugs right up underneath that hole. And hopefully not over the hole. But if it is, that's okay. See, now I could do two things. I could actually try to restamp it, which, although I'm very good at that, might get away with it. But what I'm gonna do instead is I'm gonna come back in with some black permanent marker, and I'm gonna find the right color of marker, but I'm also gonna fill in with some paint too. So we'll see how this turns out. And of course, my favorite black pen, the Pitt pens by Faber-Castell. And I can just come in here and just fill it in. This ink with this pen blends really well with the ink from this ink pad. So I'll just come in here, give it some detail, bring it back to what it's supposed to look like. And again, on something like this, just take your time, go slow. There's no reason to rush. You want it to look good. Love is in the details. And if you can just take a little bit extra time, if I would have taken extra time, this probably would not have happened to begin with. So I think that looks much better. I could absolutely come in here with some more filling in of the black, smoothing out some of the edges, but I think I'm gonna leave it. I think it's good enough for now. So now I have some watercolors that are shimmery, metallic. I get them from Uli on Etsy, and I talked about her watercolors last year in my Christmas card video, and they're just lovely. But I think they work best when you paint them on dark surfaces, primarily even black. But they do work on white and other colored surfaces as well. But I think this is gonna be an advantage for me in this particular situation. One of the things I'm using here is a very, very fine tip paintbrush. I can't read what the size is on here, so you can see that it's just a very, very fine tip paintbrush. And I've already wet some of the paint. I just used a little dropper pipette. That's what it is. It's a pipette. You let it sit for just a minute or two, and it will rehydrate the paint. And I like my paint to be pretty thick. I don't want it to be too thin. I do actually want it to pool a little bit when I go to paint it. So I'm gonna just jump in and see what happens. And I'm just taking my time again. I'm trying primarily to stay within the black or on top of the black. But if it goes off, I don't care. I'm not gonna worry too much about it. Some of these lines in here, I might just kind of freeform it. They're not cheap, but they are worth it. And they're handmade, and she puts a lot of work into making these paints. And she does have sales so that you can buy it at a discounted price. But Again, they're handmade, so there's a lot that goes into them. And you can see on her Instagram how she makes the paints. It's quite interesting. I'm gonna add a little bit of green to the leaves. Just a little bit, just to add a little shimmer. It doesn't have to be a lot. I do have a little bit of this sparkle, SP1, I think it is, in her Sparkle series. I think it's her Sparkle series, but it's this color, it's SP1. And I'm just gonna highlight a little bit on these flowers just to give them a little brightness. And here I'm not even gonna worry if it goes over. I'm not trying to stay inside. It's just gonna catch the light and give it a little shimmery glint. So I'll do it down below too. I don't know if I like that, but I'm gonna go with it. Yeah, and I think I'm just gonna keep it really simple like that. I could go do the whole thing and even the outside of the heart, but right now I haven't messed it up. So I'm gonna keep it the way it is so that I don't mess it up. And I think it turned out really sweet. Now, I was thinking that these looked a little drab. They needed a little something, and I was thinking about using a Posca pen. But I feel like I have a tad bit more control with this really small paintbrush than I do a Posca pen. Although a really fine tip Posca pen would probably work. That's really fun. That just kind of brings it to life a little bit more. Okay, so did I know I was gonna paint all of these doors gold before I started? I did not. I had an idea I might use Posca pens, but I think it turned out really cute. There's something very sweet. There's just something kind of special with a home that has a golden door, I think. Maybe it's very welcoming, or I don't know, it's just fun. Now, clearly you can see in my usual autumn style, I don't do things evenly. And I decided a long time ago that my work had a little bit of a wonk to it, and that's okay. I'm going to accept my wonky, crooked way that I make things and consider it part of my style. So this is the one that had the little smudge right above the house. I might just leave it like that. That might be kind of cute. I'll probably come back in on top with some of that lighter yellow. But actually, I might make that bigger. Maybe even so big that it goes behind the house a little bit. I'm gonna just kind of leave it like that and see what happens. And then when I paint the lighter yellow on top, we'll see. It might show, it might do nothing, but I ultimately do want it to be one big golden sun. Now the smudge is coming through a little bit, but I'm gonna let it dry before I monkey with the paper at all, because I don't want the paper to pill up. And I can just come back on top with another really good thick coat of the lighter yellow, and I think it'll be cute. So my sun is dried, and before I paint the yellow on top of it, I'm gonna paint the door, I think pink, because why not? I like that. Okay, so now I'm gonna add the yellow on top of the gold. So the gold is called beer and the yellow is called ginger. And Fandango was the pink. So let's see what comes up with this. I like it to be kind of thick when I paint it. I like it to be creamy and not too watery because the coverage is much better. So, might just let the swirl kind of hang out there a little bit. Yeah, I think I'll just leave it. No, I'm gonna cover it in. That's fun, that looks cute. Okay, so now I'm gonna add the calendars, but first I had to make sure they were all dry. I had to make sure that my work surface didn't have any wet paint from where I was testing it out. Make sure everything's dry so that I don't make a mess. And I'm gonna add the calendars. And it's a little tricky because just like the house, it can be a little crooked. I think the calendars are a little bit easier because they line up with the sides of the paper, and I'll show you what I mean. So because these calendars are exactly 3 inches wide and my paper's 3 inches wide, it works really well. So I can stick the calendar down just by removing the tab on the back, and it's pretty strong, so be careful that you get it in the right spot. And I just pull it up at 1/4 of an inch from the bottom, and you can just kind of eyeball it, but just, again, take your time and don't press it down until you have it right where you want it. Make sure it's as even as you can get it. And then I just press it in place. So I'll do all of these, and then I'll add the string. Okay, so I have some baker's twine cut, like just about 1 foot long, and I'm just gonna fold it in half and insert it through the hole, and then pull the 2 tails in to make the tag. You can either leave the ends of the tails open, or you can tie them closed. And I'm going to tie them closed. I think these are so fun. So I'm all done. I think they turned out fabulous. I was not expecting to paint the front door gold. It just sort of happened that way. And I think it works. What I also think works is this December month is the only one that says Happy Holidays, but it just looks great because with the wreath and the door, it kind of brings it home, right? And the other ones look like this. Has a vintage feel, has a handcrafted feel. It's definitely handcrafted. And this one turned out sweet. This one is fun. You can do anything. It's just a start. All kinds of ideas. Thank you for joining me. I hope you're inspired. I hope this time of year you feel the same way I do, in a creative spirit where you want to make things that you can share and give as gifts. I always think that giving gifts that are handmade just adds that really special personal touch that you don't get from store-bought gifts. So I hope you're inspired. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video, and I have my holiday cards coming up in the next video, so be sure to watch. Take care and peace.